One of the first things I like to do in a new city or country is hit up the local museums. And Saigon has an abundance of museums, including the charming and informative History Museum of Ho Chi Minh City. And that's where I decided to go first. But museum trips are more than dusty displays and learning stuff. There are all the other things that make up a museum day on Planet Doug. For example, I got to ride on more local city buses and see new areas of Saigon. I indulged in a strong Streetside Espresso. And I enjoyed a bubble milk tea made with high-quality Vietnamese tea leaves. And in a bonus video clip hidden at the end, you can see me struggling with an unexpected and challenging lunch. So sit back, relax, let me do all the work, and enjoy the video. Small adventures have begun, and the idea for this morning is to go to a museum. I'm not entirely sure about the name, but it's a museum of the history of Vietnam. But I think it's called the History Museum of Ho Chi Minh City or something like that. But there are actually two museums. One is actually about the history of Ho Chi Minh City, but the other one is the history of Vietnam, but in Ho Chi Minh City. So I hope I'm going to the right one. It's near the Botanical Gardens, and I was trying to get there by local bus, and it was a little bit, I had a bunch of options which bus to take, and I wasn't, maybe I was overconfident. The other day I took a bus and I knew exactly where the bus stop was, and there was a map there, and I tried to repeat that experience. This one was a little bit more confusing, but I'm on a bus now. This is bus 88. There's the front of the bus, and this is where I was yesterday, actually. This is where I got bus 52, I believe. But this bus 88, I think it goes where I want to go, and I just sort of waved it down in the middle of the street. I was nowhere near any kind of a recognizable bus stop, but I waved it down, and he slowed down, and I just hopped on board. So here we go. Now just track my progress on Google Maps and see if I get anywhere near this museum I want to visit. So far so good. I know exactly where we're going, and we're down by the river again. And these boats over there are some kind of river cruise boats or river taxis, something like that. You can just perhaps get a glimpse of them through the door there. They seem to be quite popular, so I'm going to try and hop on one of those boats at some point. Early morning rush hour traffic as always. A lot of scooters out here. Almost at my stop. Good old bus 88. My new favorite bus in Saigon. Yeah, we are turning right. Check out the traffic. It's quite the intersection. Pulling over at the next stop. That'll be me. Not a lot of room. Not a lot of room up here for my head. I can whack into these bars. Okay. And there it goes. Yeah, I'm in the right place. Check that out. Banh mi if you're hungry. Need some breakfast. And I found the website for this museum. It looks like they have a really nice website. I hadn't looked at it till now. I believe it cost 30,000 dong entrance fee. There we go. Crosswalk. There we go. But as I was walking towards the entrance, I came across this little coffee stall. 100% natural coffee. I don't know if it's traditional Vietnamese style or what's going on here, but I'm gonna try a cup. Hello. Ah, I guess cafe den?
Yeah.
Just one?
Actually,
A little bit, yeah. Sugar. No. So, I was actually wondering how to pronounce anything, and then I realized sort of like cafe, basically coffee. Oh, den sua moi. Yeah, I don't know what any of that means. But you can get iced coffee. He has ice in there, or you can get. Oh yeah, look at that. Full-on coffee press and everything. So I'm gonna settle in over here and enjoy this coffee. For some reason, I was feeling fancy this morning, so I put on my button-down shirt. So it's I don't know, I thought going to a nice museum, I dress up as best I can, but it's a little bit hot, this shirt and long pants. So yeah, this is my coffee. And to my surprise, it's extremely, like a very small amount of liquid. Just like it's like an espresso. And maybe that's what I ordered, Cafe Den. Maybe that's like an espresso thing. I don't know why I'm trying to put a straw in there. Yeah, black, just a tiny shot of black coffee way down at the bottom. Very, very strong. Flavorful. I'm not getting that chocolate feeling though. A lot of the coffee I've had here, I'm assuming it's Vietnamese style, but it has a chocolate flavoring to it. This doesn't have that. It just has a pure coffee flavor. I wasn't feeling particularly like I had to have a cup of coffee, but there's a guy right here, and I thought, hey, why not? Part of the experience, the morning's small adventures. Tons of construction going on in this whole area. So that little coffee stall that was set up there for the construction workers, they're all pouring out there to get their morning cup of coffee. Smarter than me though, they're all getting iced coffee, which is what I should have gotten. Coming up on the museum right here, there's a museum coffee shop. Right here, yeah, museum coffee. And I don't know if there are special exhibits going on right now. It makes sense that there would be, but this is the History Museum. Vietnamese tea, water puppetry art. Only with 365 steps inside the Museum of History, you will have an exciting tour of Vietnamese history from the primitive period to the first period of founding and struggling for independence, and from the first feudal dynasty to the last one. So, here we are. I'm not sure about taking video inside the museum, so I'm going to put away my camera as I go in, just so I don't freak anybody out. Entrance right over there, 30,000 dong. And I guess we're learning a couple of Vietnamese words, though, as with Vietnamese in general, even seeing the lettering, it doesn't help. That's the difficult thing about Vietnamese. I mean, this means entrance, okay, but I have no idea how to pronounce that.
Lối vào. Lối vào. Lối vào.
So even seeing the word written down doesn't help in any way. You have to hear it in order to get any sort of understanding. The museum. A lot of it being renovated. Not surprising. That's something you see all the time. But yeah, that whole building is covered up and being fixed up. Map of the museum. Prehistoric period. First period of founding and struggling for independence. And early dynasties. Whole bunch of Champa culture. You hear that. You hear about Champa all the time. Eo culture. That's brand new to me. I've never heard of that. Stone carvings of Cambodia. More dynasties. Cannons. Tai Son dynasty. Another dynasty. Ceramic. Minority culture. And Buddhist statues. So, and looks like, yeah, they have a route mapped out. You come in through the entrance and then go this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just go around in a circle and come back to the beginning again. 17, 18 here in the middle. And it looks like there's a tea house over here as well. So they have the coffee shop outside and a really nice looking tea house. Souvenir shop as well, I think. Yeah, looks very nice. Combo tea and cake for 50,000. Iced tea for 20. That's probably in my future. And then they have a lovely pond right here. So, I'm a little bit lost right out of the gate because it's telling me to turn left to go to number 1, but of course there is nowhere to go. that whole building looks like it's closed, so I have no idea where I'm supposed to go. Yeah, it looks like it's all barricaded. Can't get in over there either. So that entire wing of the museum maybe is closed. Would it be this entire section is not open? And then over there, that's 18. Well, we'll figure this out as we go. So it looks like I'm being forced to go through the museum backwards. So this is Exhibit 18, all about Buddhism. Tells you a little bit of the history, the introduction of Buddhism into this part of the world, and then of course a lot of Buddha statues. But according to the road map, this is the end of the tour, but because all of that over there appears to be closed, I have to start at the end and work my way back around. I find this exhibit to be quite interesting. They're essentially portable altars. This is filled with Buddhist statuary, but inside a convenient carrying case so that you can close it up, bring it along with you and set it up and have your own little altar or shrine everywhere you go. It turns out that either they moved things around or I misunderstood the map completely, because this is room 1. I had to go through room 18, and that brought me into this circular room, which is completely empty. You can see all the exhibits are empty. That room's being renovated. But now this is the starting point, number 1, prehistoric period, all about the Stone Age and the development of tools and fire and things like that. And shows a lot of the Stone Age relics that have been discovered throughout Vietnam, all the way from the north to the south. And then in the next exhibit, you get into the more modern history, the first period of founding and struggling for independence. And this is quite an interesting room. It talks about 3 ancient cultures of Vietnam, basically divided between the north, the central, and the south. And the far north were the Dong Son. And one of the things coming from the Dong Son culture are the Dong Son bronze drums. And they talk a lot about them here. You can see that they were developed there in the north, and then this type of drum culture and the making of the drums spread throughout all of Southeast Asia. So this is the Dong Son bronze drum. And then as you go about the room, this is all about Dong Son culture, which is to the north. And then this is, I forget the name of it now, the culture, oh there it is, the Saigon from central Vietnam. And then over here, the third one from South Vietnam. Yeah, very interesting from this time period. Long time ago, but they have beautiful jewelry. And they even discovered this skull that had jade jewelry, like an earring. And that told them a lot about this society, the fact that it had various classes and it had developed this kind of jewelry. Bronze, this is basically the Bronze Age, all of these weapons and tools, and the drums were also made out of bronze. This is also an interesting exhibit, mainly because it seems to connect with burial cultures from all over Southeast Asia. You see the like the same style of coffin, like a log that has been hollowed out and then used as a coffin. And here they had these wooden coffins, and then the coffin itself placed inside a sarcophagus. And they found a whole series of burial sites in and around Ho Chi Minh City. This one here, for example. And then this woman was well preserved, I guess, because she was mummified. As you go from room to room, you're moving from the history of various dynasties. And overall, I end up left with the impression of the people here constantly dealing with invading forces. And that's sort of the feeling I like to get from a museum, where it takes you out of the present moment, out of modern history, and takes you back in time, and you get a sense of geologic time and then ancient human history. So with the Vietnamese people, for example, from a North American point of view, we might think immediately of the French colonial period, and then the fight against the French, the Indochina War, and then the Vietnam War with the Americans. But of course, for the Vietnamese people, those were just the most recent invaders they had to fight off going back centuries. So here, for example, is a long story of fighting against the Mongols. And that's what all of this depicts, various invading forces of the Mongol. And so the Vietnamese have basically been fighting off invaders throughout millennia, not just within the last century or two. This room and this exhibit focuses on the Champa culture, and that's something that you come across over and over again when you go through museums in this part of the world. Thailand or any other country. And I guess the important takeaway, the thing to remember, which I always tend to forget until I'm reminded, is that the Champa were like an Indianized culture. So they're Indianized kingdoms. And then of course, when you look at the art, you can see the influences from India. And yeah, so that's the key takeaway about the Champa. And they influenced all the countries in this part of the world. So you can see a lot of the artwork here. Looks very much influenced from India, Hindu culture. And this entire room and exhibit represents something quite new to me. I don't know how to say the name, of course, but it's all about a society or a historical period, or maybe seems to be the name of an actual city that has been uncovered. You can see the name of it there.
Ốc eo. Ốc eo. Ốc eo.
And I was just reading about it, and they don't have any architectural remains, so there's no buildings from this culture. They can't see what the city looked like, but in excavating it, they found an incredible amount of beautiful artwork, sculpture, jewelry, statuary, all kinds of things. And from what I read, it points to a very close relationship with China and with India. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I've never heard of this this place before, this city. Taking a break from the interior of the museum, there's a courtyard here right on the edge of the fence with the botanical garden filled with cannon. Some of them are just absolutely massive. I don't think I've ever seen cannon that look exactly like these things here, like this one here. It's just huge. And that one over there, I'm not sure what, these I'm familiar with. Of course, you see a cannon like that all the time, but that monster over there, and then this one here, and then this one here. I'm not quite sure where they came from, who made them, what they fired. It's unbelievable. Video and photography here is sort of interesting because there are signs everywhere saying no photography, you can't take pictures and you can't take video anywhere in the museum. When I came in, I spoke to the ticket seller and I asked him, is it okay to take pictures and shoot video? And he says, yeah, it's absolutely fine. But the signs say otherwise, that no cameras of any kind allowed. And there are security guards everywhere in every room. And I've occasionally pulled out my GoPro just to record a little bit of video, but I've only done it when there were no guards around and no other people around. I get the impression that a couple of the times the guards were looking at my GoPro dangling from my pants pocket and they wanted to come over and tell me, you can't shoot any video in here, sir. But so far, I've managed to sort of sneak by with just little snippets here and there. I'm not done the tour of the museum yet, but overall my impression is, and this is similar to my experience in lots of different museums, is that I'm just getting an overall sense of other things happening in this land before the 20th and 21st century. That's the main thing I want to get out of a museum, to get a sense of place and time that's outside of modern history, I suppose. Because when you go through the museum, you learn about this dynasty, this battle, and it's just an avalanche of names and historical eras and kings and armies and invaders. And there's just no way, unless you're an expert in that field, there's no way you're ever going to keep all of it straight. You're not going to remember any of this stuff. And I also have this feeling that, like Vietnam, when you think of the country, is this long, thin country along the coast, as a bulge in the north of Hanoi, up in the mountains, and then a long, narrow coastal area, and then the Mekong Delta in the south. And you think of that as Vietnam, and then you go through a museum about the history of Vietnam. But again, I always end up wondering, who exactly are they talking about? Was there an actual Vietnamese people that were continuous over all these thousands of years and over this particular piece of land? So when they talk about the Vietnamese fighting off all these different invaders, I'm not always entirely sure who exactly they are talking about. You see an exhibit about the Champa Kingdom. Well, what was the Champa? Were they the Vietnamese, like a different cultural period, but the same Vietnamese people? Or were they completely different people? And then you got the Mongol invaders, the Han invaders from China, just on and on. So I think realistically, the history is a mixture of all kinds of different people that inhabited different parts of this landmass. And I think if you come away from the museum with just a few names trickling around in your head and a basic sense of what's going on, I think you've done well. As I said, you're not going to come out of a museum like this and be an expert in Vietnamese history, art, culture, language, anything like that. So anyway, now after the cannon, I'm going to dive back inside and go through the rest of the museum. See if I haven't gotten into anything about the modern era yet. We'll see how much they say about that. And I think this might be the very last exhibit in this tour. I'm in room number 12. Maybe there's a bunch more between 12 and 17, 18. I'm not really sure. But we're sort of in the modern era, and I have a feeling this is as close as we're going to get to the modern era. And this is all about, again, just attempting pronunciation, the Nguyen dynasty, which was from 1802 to 1945.
Nhà Nguyễn, Nhà Nguyễn, Nhà Nguyễn.
So according to what I'm reading here, they overthrew the Tai Son dynasty and reunified the country. This fellow, Nguyen An, established the throne, and it was the last monarch dynasty in Vietnam before the modern communist era, in fact. And they have a map or a diagram here of all the various leaders that were part of the Nguyen dynasty. And for the first time, we're starting to get language about the modern era. So for example, here, it's a little paragraph about the establishment of the Communist Party of Vietnam in 1930, and then Ho Chi Minh, and there at the bottom, the August Revolution of 1945, expelling French colonialists, Japanese fascists, and overthrowing the feudal Nguyen government, establishing the modern Democratic Republic of Vietnam. So now this finally links the historic eras of Vietnam with the modern period. And as I said, I don't know if there are some more exhibit halls or not after this. We'll find out. And this is the sign that I was talking about. You see this all over the museum. No video cameras, no cameras, no smoking, no touching, obviously, and stay, keep your voice down. But yeah, they make it pretty clear they don't want anyone taking pictures or photography. But of course, everybody is coming through here taking pictures with cameras and smartphones. So far, I'm the only person I've seen with any kind of a video camera or shooting video and recording audio. One interesting thing for me about coming to this museum, the museum itself has been fascinating. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. Planet Doug recommended, Planet Doug approved. But as I've been here quite a long time. I go through museums quite slowly, and I often double back and go through exhibits several times. So I've been here quite a long time. And as I've been here, a whole bunch of tour groups have come through. I assume they're bus package tours kind of thing. And they have guides. And as far as I can tell, they're mainly European, French, German, groups like that. And it's just been really interesting to see these big groups of foreigners, like Westerners like me, but from countries like Germany. They're such a different vibe to them that I'm accustomed to, a different style, just a different way of dress, of everything. Yeah, it's quite interesting just to be around all these Westerners for a change. But just a little note that always occurs to me, I often see exhibits of old coins and currency, and quite often they have a square cut out of the middle of them, you see there? And I often wonder what the point of that is. Is it decorative? Or I was wondering whether coins have a square hole in the middle so that you could put them on a necklace or something, string them around your neck with a cord. Is that what it's meant for? Is it a practical thing, decorative, or cutting out that square, is it meant to adjust the weight of the coin to get it just right for that particular metal and value of the coin? I don't really know, but you see that all the time with historic currencies, that they often have something cut out of the middle of the coin. Curious why that is. I probably looked this up before, but as with everything I've learned in life, I learn it and then I just as quickly forget about it. And there does appear to be a kind of water puppet theater here. And it's not a normal part of the museum. It looks to be a performance at different times of the day or different days of the week. And then there's a small theater over here with a pond. And I guess there's that'd be quite interesting to see, actually. Water puppet theater. But I don't know when the next performance might be. It looks like it's 120,000 dong for a ticket. And then over here is the historic tea house. So I'm going to pop in here and get herbal iced tea or cold tea, something like that. And then, so here's the inside of the tea. This looks good. Milk tea, I think that's what I'm going to get. And so I think we're more or less at the end of our tour of the History Museum. I'm inside the tea shop here. Very, very nice. This is, in a way, one of the highlights of the museum, that you can end your tour here. I'll spin the GoPro around. And there's the interior of the tea shop. A lot of really nice seating here by the window. And you can look out the window over the central courtyard. And that's the building over there that's being renovated, but it appears not to have affected the museum in any way. As I thought maybe that part of the museum was closed and some exhibits were now closed, but I think I went through all the exhibits, so I don't know. That's probably a different part of the museum. They don't have exhibits over there. But yeah, here's the interior of the tea shop, and you could pay to try on some local clothing and have your picture taken. Little bookshelf behind me. And I got a milk tea. Bubble milk tea. I didn't realize that. That's great. Yeah, bubble milk tea. Yeah, really nice. It tastes really good. And with that delicious bubble milk tea in that lovely tea shop, I guess that brings me to the end of my visit to the History Museum. I've got the fish pond behind me. I'm in the courtyard now, and this is where the tea shop is located. And I guess they're renovating the tower up there as well, so it's all covered up, but it's a very beautiful building. I've seen pictures of it before it was being renovated. I love this tree here. There's a nice shady area here to sit outside the tea shop as well. Oh, there I am, reflection in the window. So to sum up, yeah, I'd recommend coming here if you have a particular interest in history. Though I visit a lot of museums like this in different countries, and I do end up with the feeling that I could use a different type of museum. Because this is a history museum, it tends to be a summary of military achievements, battles, this dynasty, then they get invaded by this force, they defeat that force, then someone else, there's a revolution. It's basically a series of different governments and the military fighting that happens between them. And as a visitor to a country that isn't always the most useful thing, I would love to see a museum that targets specific areas where, say, you go to a museum and you learn about the history of the Vietnamese language, Vietnamese currency, Vietnamese food, Vietnamese agricultural practices throughout the millennia. Things like that would be kind of interesting, but again, that's not what this museum is about. It's more about the history. So you get a whole bunch of historical periods and governments, who's in charge of what piece of land, for how long until the next invading force comes along, things like that. And it is interesting. The most I expect to get out of a museum like this is just to have a few names, as I said, kicking around inside my brain, so that as I spend time in the country, if you go traveling around, you start to recognize things like, I remember that name from the museum, and you start to make connections in your brain. And as I said, I also love to have this idea of a part of the world outside of the modern era. So a museum like this takes you all the way back to prehistoric times, geologic periods, and then going through the Stone Age and development of the Bronze Age culture, things like that, right up until the modern era. And I enjoy getting that kind of a perspective. So, yeah, with that final thought, I think I'll be shutting down the GoPro now, hopping back on a bus, probably bus 52. I picked out bus 52 to take me back to my hotel, and we'll see how that turns out. So that's it, shutting down, and I'll see you in the next video. One thing I really like here is there are a lot of buses, and the buses seem to come quite frequently, and they often have these bus stops, so you know you're actually at a place where buses are supposed to stop, which is nice to know. And here behind me is the map for the various buses that come here, and there's mine, bus 52. But yeah, it's a very well organized, gives me a lot of confidence. Even up here, look at that, digital sign is operational. Bus 19, various buses that come here. Very nice. So now I just settle in and wait. See what bus comes next. Hopefully 52. That's the lucky number for this journey. I got the bus of my choice, 52. And we are on our way. Now I just have to watch our journey on Google Maps. And whenever we get anywhere near my hotel, I can hop off. It's really comfortable on this bus. A lot of empty seats, air conditioned, very quiet. Yeah, these buses are great. I prefer a subway system if I can find one, but of course they don't have one here, so at least this bus system makes up for it. Yeah, I think out of all the buses that stop there, number 52 has the most direct route. It goes back to my neighborhood very quickly. And just up ahead, we're going to go around a big roundabout. And then from there, very quick journey back to my neighborhood. And here's the roundabout. Around every single corner, there's another set of amazing restaurants, like those ones right there. So many interesting places where you could get a meal here. And I'm just about back at my hotel. As always, there's the Ben Thanh Market building over there. I imagine I'll pop in there at some point, take a look around. Back right at the park where my hotel is located. So I'll be getting off at the very next stop. And here we are, and there goes bus 52. No problems at all. This place right up above me, the Little Hanoi Egg Coffee place, is sort of becoming a regular landmark for me. I keep coming to this corner so I can cross over here to get to my hotel across the park. I never noticed that before, but there's a giant bus station right over there. I think my bus 52 actually turned into that big parking area. Huh, I had no idea. So maybe that's the convenient place to go to get any bus you want going anywhere in the city, and then you just stay on the bus till it gets back there again. Huh, I'll have to look into that. So after my trip to the museum, I decided to hop next door to my hotel. There's this noodle shop that I've had my eye on for a while. And I think on the sign outside they call it the best noodle shop in Vietnam. So how can you resist that? So yeah, here's the setting on the inside. And that's where they make the noodles. One thing I noticed is that all the samples that they have outside, they all have these giant shrimp in them, and I'm not a big shrimp eater, but I did find one here. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it didn't look like it had any of the giant shrimp. So I took a photograph of that noodle soup, and I showed him the picture from their own display, and that's what I ordered. So we'll see what that turns out to be like. I'm not really sure what it is. I thought it was full of dumplings, but maybe it's not dumplings at all. We'll find out what it is. No, it was nothing like what I thought it was. Again, in the photograph, it looks like big dumplings, but it's actually giant hunks of bone and meat, something like that. So this is what I ended up with. So I've got a noodle soup over here, and then bone marrow, I guess, or something. What do they call it on the menu? Pork marrow noodle soup. So it isn't what I thought it was, but I'm sure I can manage to work my way through this. So the noodles, of course, will be pretty straightforward. Just noodles. Tasty broth and broccoli. This is the more challenging part, to be honest. In terms of the types of food available in the world, this is exactly the worst kind of thing for me. It's just so complicated to eat. It ends up being so much work. Full of bones and difficult to handle, and if I'd known what it was, I wouldn't have ordered it, but now I know. Actually, maybe it's not as difficult as I thought. The meat seems to be falling right off the bone. Just have to be very careful with eating it because you get so many bone fragments. I've had experience with this in the past, and with bone fragments, it's really easy to break a tooth. You bite down hard on a piece of bone. So I've learned to eat things like this very, very carefully. It's very good though, very tasty. And I haven't even added any kind of spicing or sauces or anything. Just the, what was that? I'm just eating the soup straight as it came to my table. Okay. It's not nearly as difficult to eat as I thought it would be. So I'm enjoying this. It's a lot of meat. It's very, very filling. Well, I made it through those 3 big chunks of bone and meat without too many mishaps. I only dropped one of them and it splashed everywhere. But 1 big splash per meal, that's pretty acceptable. Now I have all the broth from 2 different bowls. in this climate. You don't leave any broth behind. You need all the liquid you can get. So. And there you have it. A surprising meal. Not what I was expecting. Not even what I wanted, but I ended up enjoying it very much. That was good. I didn't realize how hungry I was, but it's always like that. Once the food is in front of me, and I realize how hungry I am.